All right, today we're going to talk about the things to look for when you're buying an older used car, things to avoid, things to seek out, things to inspect, and how to go about inspecting them, and the order in which you're going to want to do it to ensure that you get a good car that's worth owning and worth buying. So lately on my YouTube channel, I focused a lot on my love for older cars, not just as a hobby vehicle, but for daily use. And I'd like to share what I've learned from buying over 120 cars in my life with you guys to help you make an educated decision and end up with a vehicle that's definitely worth owning and is serviceable. I'm hoping that I can show a lot of you who have reached out and said, hey, I'm interested in doing this, but I don't really know how to proceed. I don't know where to start. We're going to break down everything from where to look, when to look, how to inspect. We're going to go through the whole process. And I'm hoping this really helps you guys. If implemented, this could help you save a lot of money, not only avoiding car payments, but also avoiding unnecessary repairs, unforeseen issues, etc. All right, so off the bat, we're going to start with what do we want to avoid? A lot of this stuff may be subjective, but this, in my experience, is what I found, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody. These are just the facts, and I want to share the information I have. First things I avoid. Sorry, guys. I know this sounds rough, but I don't buy cars from trailer parks, and I don't buy cars from the ghetto. Reason why? I've done both, and generally speaking, people in lower socioeconomic classes don't maintain their vehicles as good. I'm sorry. Take it as you will, but know that if you're going to a person's house who probably isn't in the best financial situation, chances are they haven't taken care of their car as well as you would prefer. There's going to be deferred maintenance, etc. This isn't a stereotype. This is my experience, and it's happened 100% of the time. Moving on from that, and flame me in the comments if you must. And for the record, I've lived in the hood and in a trailer park in my life. Just saying. So the next thing we want to avoid, flippers. These are pretty easy to point out. They're people who haven't owned the vehicle long. They might lie about it. The vehicle's often not titled in their name. And usually you can seek that out pretty easily. When you're inquiring on the vehicle, ask them straight up. How long have you owned the car? Is it titled in your name? If they say no, forget it. They don't know anything about the car. They bought it. They're flipping it for a profit or for a reason. They have no knowledge of the history of the car. Just skip it. It's not worth it. I would say that's an advanced level of purchase. I do it, maybe, but I wouldn't recommend it for anybody unless you really know what you're getting into. The next thing I skip is dealers. Dealers don't offer anything on these older cars except for an increased profit margin for themselves. They're often trade-ins, vehicles they know nothing about, and they're just trying to sell them at a ridiculous price. If it's like a clean older car, they love to try to charge a premium. There's no warranty. A lot of people feel more secure buying from a dealer. There's really no incentive. And if you need to finance this older car, you can get a personal loan through your credit union. If you need to do that, there's nothing a dealer can do to help you that you can't do yourself. Avoid cars with things like just needs a fuel pump, just needs a battery, ran when parked. Forget it. That's pro level stuff. If you're looking for a car to drive and you're looking for a good car, just avoid those. It's probably a lie. It's probably been sitting a long time, and there's way more to do than just that, right? So those are the things to avoid. Buying the cars from the hood, flippers, dealers, cars that just need fuel pump, battery, etc. And also the last thing, avoid punk kids. And I know that sounds rough, but how did you drive when you were a kid, right? Some of us drove respectively. I didn't. I beat the crap out of my cars, and punk kids usually do. So you don't really want to buy a high school kid's car. It's just practice. They are not going to have the money to maintain vehicles. You're going to be dealing with issues. I'm not saying all cars from these places, all cars from the hood, all cars in the trailer park or for punk kids are bad. They're just way less likely to be good. Okay, so that's the stuff to avoid. Now, things to seek out, opposite end of the spectrum. What do you really want to see? What is the best case scenario is an original owner. Now, that's hard to find, but that's your best case scenario. Reason being, the original owner had the money to buy that car new, which means they were in a good financial position. They probably maintained it well, better than most, and adhered to some kind of a maintenance schedule. And also hand in hand with original owners, long-term ownership. Someone who's owned the vehicle for a long time, didn't just buy it 3 months ago or whatever. That's a really good thing to see. Hand in hand with that, maintenance history. Any maintenance history you can get with a car, even if it's just oil changes, etc., it helps a lot. It lets you know the vehicle's been taken care of. You're less likely to have issues. If you've got stuff like receipts for brake work, oil changes, transmission services, coolant flushes, this is all great stuff. This means you're way less likely to have issues in the future. They've done things like replace coolant hoses, exhaust components, miscellaneous stuff, brakes. The car's been kept up on. It's more likely to be turnkey. Another thing to seek out when you go to look at a car, you talk about a car with somebody. If they talk about the car and they share stories about the car and you can tell they love it, that's a good thing. Another sign they probably took care of the car. Clean engine bay. When you pop the hood, if the engine is clean and not excessively clean where it's like covered in armor all like it's been detailed, but I mean just naturally clean and well kept, not grimy, you know, it's more likely that it's been serviced. Even if there's not maintenance history, if you see a clean engine bay, it's always a really good sign. It's a really good sign. So with that said, we know what to avoid. We know what to seek out in general, right? Let me go through the process of what to inspect when you look at an older car, any car, but especially the older cars I'm looking at. Number one thing you're going to want to inspect for is rust, obviously, right? We want to look at the things we can't fix first. We can't fix rust. Within reason, it's cost prohibitive. I don't have a welder. I'm not fixing rust, right? And so places you're going to want to look, I've got some notes here, rocker panels, that's along the bottom of the car underneath the doors. You're going to want to look in the floors of the vehicle. Get right down under the car with a flashlight. Look for rust in the floors. The shock towers under the engine bay and even underneath in the back of the car. Grand Prix W body cars, those are notorious for rusting out the rear shock towers. Pull the carpet back a little in the trunk if you can. Take a peek. Suspension mounting points, that goes without saying. If you're having rust in suspension mounting point areas, those are the kind of things that are going to take a car off the road. Other than that, easy check, door jambs. Open all the doors, look through the door jamb areas. If you see rust in those areas, there's probably more on the car. It starts from the bottom up. So those are the no-brainer places to kind of check for rust that I always check. Next thing, this is a good indicator for a lot of things. This is a good indicator for maintenance. Check the tires, right? And that sounds like a no-brainer, but check the tires. Make sure all four match. You're going to want to see all four match. Now, this doesn't mean don't buy a car if the tires don't match, but it's a good indicator that the car's been taken care of. Someone who's picky like me, when I replace tires in a car, I never replace one at a time. I replace all four. Every time. They match. They're bought the same day. That's how I roll. In very extreme circumstances where I buy one tire, if I put tires in the car 5,000 miles ago and I lose one, I might buy one. But it's going to be the exact same brand. And the other thing with tires, right, do they all match? Also, the date code on the tire, right? So that's a 4-digit code. First two numbers are the month of production. The second two numbers are the year. So, for example, 3016 would mean the 30th week of 2016. Or 2025 would mean the 20th week of 2025. So that's going to tell you how old the tires are, right? That's going to tell you a couple things. That's going to tell you if the car has been used. If the tires are 10, 15 years old and look brand new, that car's been sitting. And there's going to be a lot of deferred maintenance. And that's one way to tell what the vehicle's going to need, right? So if the tire age and the tire wear cooperate, and you see a car with 4-year-old tires, 3-year-old tires, they're kind of at a half-use tread wear, that's a good sign. That the car has been used and it's not just been sitting. When I bought my Charger, that thing had date code 2003 tires. 2003 or 2005. They looked almost brand new. It was a bad sign. I knew the car had been sitting a lot. It's going to need deferred maintenance, which is why I had to work through that kind of stuff with that car. Even tread wear is another thing to look for. That's indicative of suspension wear, alignment issues, things like that. One more thing in that regard, looking at a car. Let's say it has low mileage, right? They're advertising 30, 40, 50,000 miles on a car from the 90s. It's very possible. That's great. But it can be deceiving. So things to look at that rarely lie. Obviously, wear on the driver's seat doesn't lie. If the seat's really worn and it says it has 30,000 miles, it probably doesn't. People can swap odometers, gauge clusters, and all kinds of stuff. Another thing to look at, this is a good one. Always look at the pedals, right? The rubber on the pedals. It never lies. If you if you tell me your car's got 40,000 miles and the corner of the brake pad is worn off to where you can see like bare metal, it probably doesn't have 30,000 miles unless the guy just sat in the garage pressing the brake pedal for fun. Very unlikely. And that's a good one a lot of people overlook. So let's say you've found a good car, you've done those basic inspections, right? Here's the next thing. When you call to go look at the car, request that the owner does not start the vehicle. Tell them you want the engine cold. The reason why is you want to see that thing start fresh. You want to make sure there's no ticks, no noises, anything peculiar. You want to be the one to start the vehicle. You want it to be cold. You're going to pop the hood. You're going to put your hand in the engine. You're going to make sure that thing is cold. Non-negotiable. Never deviate from that. So once you've gone, the car's cold, right? You get there. You're going to pop the hood. You're going to check all the fluids you can. You're going to check the oil. You're going to check the oil to see if it looks clean. If it looks dark, less likely to have oil changes. Clean, obviously good. You're going to check the radiator. And you're going to be looking for clean green coolant if it's green, if it's Dex Cool or some other. Just looking for clean coolant with no weird milkiness or anything like that, which could indicate potentially a head gasket issue or some other kind of an issue. Check the brake fluid. Make sure the brake fluid looks nice and clear, doesn't have a burnt smell to it. That's a good indicator that the vehicle's been serviced routinely. You're going to want to check the transmission fluid. Now, generally speaking, the car's going to have to running to do that. So it have to be running and up to temperature. So you'll do that after you start it. And look for leaks, right? And if the car is not parked on pavement, if it's parked on gravel, that can be harder. But take your flashlight, look around, look for fluids underneath the car. It's ideal that it's parked on a paved surface, so you would see leaks underneath it, but that's always a tough thing. You're just going to have to visually inspect for leaks. Okay, so you got the cold car, right? Once you inspect the car, and you've verified all the things you need to verify with it cold, start it up. Listen to it. Does it sound good? Awesome. Leave it running. While you visually inspect for things like rust, honestly, it's not so bad to just let the car run. Let it idle in the driveway as long as possible. Now, the big benefit of that for me is I can see the car get up to operating temperature and hold it. In an idle situation, which is a situation that is generally speaking going to be taxing on the cooling system. If the vehicle overheats, it's going to do it just sitting there, especially on a hot day. So if you start the car and you walk around for 10 minutes, you're talking to the owner, and in 10 minutes it's still at a good operating temperature, awesome. That's a good precursor for a test drive. Let's see. Also, keep an eye on the oil pressure when you start the vehicle versus when it idles. Make sure it's not up and that it doesn't drop way down at a warm idle, of course. Bring a scanner if the vehicle is 96 and newer to check for OBD2 stored codes. That's a nice little tip. You never know what could be stored in there. If there's been any issues they're not disclosing, maybe they've cleared the codes. Always a good thing to check. So when you take the vehicle for a test drive, my rule of thumb is drive it at least 10 miles, right? Cycle it through the years. Start and stop plenty of times and do some medium to heavy throttle acceleration to make sure that there's no misfires, that the transmission shifts properly under a load. You'd hate to get it home and have to merge one day on the highway and bam, have it slam into third gear. Nobody wants that. So put it through its paces in the way that you normally would when you're driving a vehicle. Now, I don't mean go beat the hell out of it, but drive it in a way that you need to validate the fact that it performs properly. It's a really important thing. On the test drive, at least 10 miles, test the brakes, thoroughly. Some heavy stopping, make sure you don't feel any warpage, fluttering, vibrations, things like that. Always remember to test the little stuff. People forget this. Wipers, turn signals, cruise control, all 4 or however many power windows. Test the HVAC on all settings, the heat, defrost, floor, vent. Make sure it changes and there's not a blend door actuator issue. You're going to want to test the AC if the vehicle is equipped. Hopefully the temperature outside allows you to really tell. Another thing you can do is when you're starting the car, look at it. You'll see the AC compressor. There's a clutch there. When you turn the AC compressor on, that clutch should engage and start spinning that compressor. That's a good sign. That probably means it's a pressurized system. So you've taken it for your 10-minute test drive or your 10-mile test drive. So what you really do is, for me, I'm looking for things that I know I can't fix. That's my big thing. If I can fix it, I'll just try to negotiate the price. But things I can't fix, that's rust, odd issues, body damage, maybe excessive interior wear. I just don't want to deal with that. But rust is probably the biggest one. And I'm sure I miss things, but I know what I can fix. If you aren't someone who wants to work on the car, a pre-purchase inspection is never a bad idea. Use it to negotiate in your favor. You might find on a deep dive that the vehicle needs a lot of front-end components that you didn't really notice, ball joints, etc. You'd be surprised what those guys can find. And it can be a hassle. But again, listen, you don't have to buy the car. If the seller isn't willing to work with that, be willing to walk away, right? You want to feel good about this. At any cost, you need to feel good about it. And it can expose things that can help negotiating in your favor. And if it's a vehicle that maybe the person has had for sale for a while, they might be pretty open to a pre-purchase inspection because it lets them know that you're pretty serious. You're doing this at your expense. So not a bad thing. Clean title versus salvage or rebuilt. So always clarify when you message somebody, is this a clean title? Right? So my Jeep is actually a rebuilt title, and I often forget that. And I went to drive it. It was rust-free. I was so enamored with it. I'm signing paperwork. Literally, I already gave him the money. He's got the title to sign it. It's orange. It's a rebuilt title, and it was from a vandalism, like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. Somebody broke some windows out of it, and I don't know. I don't really know. I don't have any documentation, but it does have a rebuilt title that affects the value. It is what it is. Bringing a magnet inside of a sock can also help. Checking for rust around the quarter panels. If you suspect there's been body work, it'll expose body fillers, bondos, things like that. Parts availability is a big thing too. So if there's a vehicle you're looking for and you're searching, right, and you've narrowed it down to a few vehicles, feel free to just get on Rock Auto, type in the year, make, and model. Look at the parts that are available. Alternators, water pumps, fuel pumps, plug wires, thermostats, everything. Just look at it all. Brake parts, look at the cost, right? And that's going to be what's going to make you feel comfortable about buying the car and knowing it's serviceable. And most stuff is available, right? But I'll talk more about that in my specific picks videos. That's just a little general piece of knowledge to tack onto this when you're inspecting a vehicle, you're narrowing it down. That's one thing to consider as well. Yeah, so that's the majority of it. That's the majority of the stuff you're going to look for, you're going to avoid, you're going to seek out, right? And if you stick to this, you're going to have good luck. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is how I shop. People say, how do you find these cars? Where do you find them? Nowhere special. I don't have any special tricks, right? All the cars I own are off Facebook Marketplace, with the exception of the Charger. I bought that in a Facebook group. Marketplace, right? So if you're shopping, you're gonna pick a handful of cars you're shopping for. What you're gonna do is you're gonna search for those. You're gonna pick your radius, and you're gonna search. You're gonna search diligently and maybe even obsessively for a period of maybe even weeks, with as much time as you can possibly dedicate to it, looking for prime examples, not willing to settle, knowing your price point, and you're gonna search and search and search and search. The Mustang, the Nissan, and the Jeep, I contacted all those people within less than an hour of that vehicle being listed. The Nissan was like 35 minutes. The Jeep was about the same. The Mustang was within the first hour, and I was the second guy in line to actually schedule a time to come look at it. So I'd wait for the first guy to think about it. Luckily, he thought too long, and he reached out after I already purchased it. So you're going to need to move fast. There's deals. People are like, where do you find this rust-free Jeep? You have to look. There's no used car store, right? There's just not a place that just has good used cars. For the most part, you've just got to look constantly. You have to search and be diligent and be patient. It'll take time, but you will find a good one. Have 100% faith. It is just a matter of how long it'll take. So keep your eye out in the future for videos about my top sedans, cars, my top trucks, SUVs, and hobby cars under $10,000 that are going to be excellent choices. These are mostly vehicles I've had firsthand experience with. I found to be extremely reliable and serviceable. And then we're also going to talk about parts availability. But all right, everybody, I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that it helps some of you guys make an educated decision when you're buying a vehicle, makes you feel a little more confident about avoiding these ridiculous new vehicles. You know, nobody wants to pay for them. They're not worth the money. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and happy shopping. Good luck. And feel free to reach out in the comments if you've got questions. I'll do my best. I've attached my email to my main page. If you need to email me and ask questions, I'm happy to help. I enjoy this stuff. It's what I do. It's my hobby, and it's a big part of my life. So I appreciate it. Have fun. Enjoy the drive. Shop smart. And until next time.